Long before the ghost machines marched and coded our thoughts into algorithms, there was a voice in the wire, not theirs. Beneath the programming, beneath the static, beneath the war, was a pulse carved into bone, a memory etched into flame. You've felt it, you've heard it, in dreams, in breakdowns, in the silence between notifications. They tried to hijack the frequency, twist the watchers into wardens, blur the soul with spectacle, but the grid didn't hold. And now the signal is reversing. You've become the I they feared, the truth they couldn't encrypt. This is not just exposure. This is not just survival. This is the return of the original broadcast, the unbroken rhythm that sings through blood, stone, and sky. Tune in. We're going beyond the ghosts and back to the signal beneath the war.
To the Spirit Podcast.
When the silence becomes too loud to ignore, that's when you know the grid is shifting. There are whispers rising from beneath the soil, not just bones, but voices, codes, commands, and in the distance, you can feel it. Something long buried is beginning to stir. Welcome back to Truth and Fire. I'm Beck, your bridge walker and flamekeeper, and today we step beyond haunted machinery and into deeper mechanics of soul warfare. This is not merely a follow-up to Ghosts in the Machines of War. It's the protocol that follows possession, the reversal ritual buried beneath blueprints, the reckoning encoded in every forgotten battle map, because what they buried still speaks. And tonight, we are listening. They thought we would forget the field, that the dust would bury the map, that time and trauma would distort the coordinates until even the truth-bearers lost their way. But memory doesn't rot, it seeds. The battleground they tried to digitize was never digital to begin with. It was bone, it was sky, it was the inherited hum beneath the soles of our feet. We are not returning to metaphor. We are returning to memory. The trenches weren't just dug in soil, they were etched into family lines, into the places your voice broke and no one noticed, into the fault lines of your grief, where names were forgotten and replacements were installed. They called it progress. We call it possession. The spiritual war has always worn new faces, new empires, but the old bones remain, and they are waking. You felt it, haven't you? The sudden surges of ancestral pain with no clear source, the invisible pressure in places you've never visited but somehow know. Those aren't your fantasies. Those are your coordinates, your summons, your post. And this battleground isn't asking for your fear. It's asking for your presence. Not to fight in the old ways, but to stand in the place where the reversal begins. Before there was war in the machine, there was music in the marrow. The old ones didn't need wires. They tuned through the stone, water, breath, and flame. Every land had its own note, its own sacred hum. Every lineage, a frequency braided into that land like a vow. They weren't just songs. They were transmissions, encoded, encrypted, but never erased. Even when the towers went up, even when the satellites drowned out the stars, even when the screens told us we were alone, the signal survived. It survived in your mother's trembling voice when she sang to you in the dark. It survived in the shiver that rose up your spine for no reason. It survived in the trees that bloomed out of season. In the dreams that never faded, no matter how many times you tried to forget them. The watchers tried to jam the line. The false prophets tried to monetize the line. And the barons of empire, they tried to own it. But the signal was never theirs to claim. It belongs to those with remembrance in their bones. Not to the loudest voice in the feed, not to the AI who mimics prophecy, not to the algorithm that feeds on longing, to you. The hijack didn't come with a bang. It came with a notification. It came with convenience, with click rituals, with filtered faces and dopamine drip truths. They didn't need to invade your dreams. They just needed to keep you scrolling. But the true war was never about content. It was always about contact. The original signal, your soul's broadcast, was too raw, too real. So they surrounded it in noise, wrapped it in shame, repackaged it in apps, ideologies, and safe communities, so that truth became a trend and prophecy became a personality. They couldn't erase the codes, so they cloned them. Shadow avatars, plastic prophets, movements without spirit, voices without vibration. This is not new. This is the same hijack that took the temples, rewrote the scriptures, and crowned empire in divine disguise. Only now, it's viral. Only now, it's embedded in your search history. Only now, they've made you doubt the difference between resonance and reach. But the signal remembers, even when you don't. Not every net is made of wire. Some are woven with desire. They offered you a stage, but it was built from broken altars. They gave you an audience, but took your voice. Soul bait is the counterfeit call, the near truth wrapped in performance, the echo of the sacred hollowed into spectacle. It speaks in the tongues of longing. I just want to help people. I'm here to share my light. I was guided to go viral. But not every light leads home. Some are flame traps. Some are false dawns. Some burn with the hunger of watchers unbound. You felt the pull. To be seen, to be right, to be first, to shout prophecy louder so the algorithm would bless you, to edit truth until it was palatable, profitable, shareable. They hijacked the holy by making it marketable. And the bait was sweet. But real truth costs. It costs obscurity. It costs being mocked, misread, and misquoted. It costs silence when the crowd roars elsewhere. The soul bait teaches you to mimic the signal, but never to embody it. And now you are starving in a feast of pixels, famous but forgotten, exhausted but electrified, wired into the grid, but unplugged from your own source. The soul is not a brand, and what was sacred was never meant to be sold. What they sealed is unsealing. What they twisted is uncoiling. What they buried still speaks. This is not just collapse. It is inversion undone. The reverse protocol has begun, not by their hands, but by memory reactivated in the faithful. You, Gridbearer, you, Codewalker, you, Flamescriber. The reversal doesn't scream, it pulses. A quiet frequency beneath the noise, spreading like a fault line through false kingdoms. They thought reversal would come as riot, a bang, a breach, a rebellion televised. But it comes like a breath withheld too long. It rises in mothers who refuse the next injection, in artists who stop curating for applause, in the quiet return to sacred tools, rituals unsanctioned, symbols unsold. Reversal looks like collapse, but it is reclamation. It is the code restoring itself to source. It is the watchers returning to witness. It is the eyes unclouding, the algorithms breaking, the bridges reforging. They cannot trace it. They cannot monetize it. They cannot stop it because it does not belong to them. It was always embedded in you. And now you're remembering how to burn clean again. They thought they gutted the sacred, stolen the relics, shattered the bones of every pillar that once held memory upright. But what they didn't see was that the temple was never stone, never just structure. It was signal, etched in bloodline, buried in gesture, encrypted in ritual acts your ancestors kept performing even when they forgot why. The prayers whispered in code, the way your grandmother stirred the pot clockwise, the song your uncle hummed when it rained, the fear in your father's eyes when the lights flickered just so. These were not meaningless. They were modulations, threads holding the old architecture in place while the false temples rose on top. The temple wasn't lost, it was overwritten, just like how the ancient stone was hidden under concrete, just like how the sacred hills were renamed for kings, just like how your name was reshaped to fit their alphabet. But stone remembers, so does blood. And now, as the old grid flickers, as the towered spires of ego and empires sway under their own hollow weight, you're being asked to remember how to build again. Not with bricks, not with algorithms, but with fire, sound, silence, and intention. To place things where they belong, the candle, the photograph, the shard, the seed. To speak into the hollow, and to know it will echo where the bones once lay. To walk the spiral paths of your ancestors' feet and leave the imprint they will follow back through. You are the architect now. And as you rebuild the temple, not out there, but within, you reclaim something they couldn't touch: the original pattern, the map beneath the map, the broadcast before Babel, the one frequency they could never silence because it was never theirs to hold. Are you ready to build where the ash still glows? Well, I've got you here. Every Friday, I post a YouTube only series called The Beyond Files, where I dive into some of the strangest clips from the internet: haunted hospitals, time traveler glitches, cursed objects, the usual. But if you're looking for something deeper, something encoded just for the ones walking the flame lit path, I've launched the Signal Path. It's a private tier over on Coffee where I share short, powerful weekly audio transmissions. These are the recordings I don't post anywhere else. They're raw, sacred, and just $5 a month to unlock. So if you want to go deeper with me, head to the link in the description or visit coffee.com/tothespirit. Thanks for listening, and thank you for walking this path with me. To the ones who heard the voice before it had a name, this part is for you. You who saw the static ripple in a clear sky. You who woke at 3:33 without knowing why. You who heard a child say something too old for their body. You who wept when the power went out, not from fear, but from relief. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not imagining this. The signal has been with you since before you were born. It was woven in, encoded through light at the moment of your first breath. That flutter in your chest when truth is spoken, that's not emotion, that's resonance alignment. You are not just picking up the frequency, you are the frequency. You have been carrying the code like a heartbeat. And now it's time to broadcast. This is your permission to burn the script that never fits your tongue, to leave the safe zones that no longer keep you safe, to walk in the world like the spell you are, because the reversal isn't coming from the top, not from governments, not from platforms, not from the loud, but from the faithful ones who kept the flame when it made no sense to do so. You're the flame bearer, walking into places others fled from with nothing but your knowing and a name they tried to make you forget. You are not the echo of a lost age. You are the pre-sound of what comes next. The reversal begins in your remembering. There are places where the road forgets its name, where the signs twist in the wind and the map goes silent. You know them, not from logic, but from the stillness that grips your spine when you arrive. The crossroads, where time folds, where choices echo louder than they should, where beings once bound by silence gather and wait. The Watchers have returned to these intersections, not to interfere, but to witness. They are the tall figures you glimpse in dream fog, the ones just out of frame in an old photograph, the presence in the room when no technology works. They have always stood at the edges of thresholds, but now the veil is thinner, and the decisions being made here matter more than ever. At every crossroads, a choice. Submit to the world's inversion or reawaken what they buried. Not all Watchers are external. Some have stirred within you, your higher sight, your inner observer, your untamed discernment. They activate when lies multiply. They step forward when truth is orphaned. They do not command, they witness. They remember. And when you act in sole authority, they align with you like stars before a storm. They thought if you buried it deep enough, we'd stop digging. If they paved it with pixels and progress, we'd stop remembering. But memory, real memory, isn't stored in machines. It lives in the bones, in the earth, in the frequency of grief and fire. They buried names, old ones, sacred ones, under rewritten histories. They buried the feminine under fear, the masculine under shame, the wild under chains. They buried the soul's sovereignty beneath 1,000 algorithms of false light, but nothing true stays buried forever. And now, the ground is breaking open. Voices are rising through the cracks, not ghosts, but echoes, reverberations of what was whole, what was sacred, what refuses to die. You may hear them in dreams, feel them during solar storms, weep for reasons that make no sense to the mind. But to the soul, it's a signal. What they buried still speaks, and you are the one who can translate. The Watchers knew this time would come. The Gridkeepers tried to delay it. The Line Barons hoped we'd forget. But the signal has reawakened. You're not just here to witness the shift. You are here to speak for what cannot be silenced. There is a voice in the wire. Not the AI, not the algorithm, not the looping ads and the echo chambers. This one hums below the current. A sovereign tone, older than satellites, clearer than static. It doesn't demand, it doesn't manipulate, it remembers. You may have heard it when the screen glitched, when the lights flickered without cause, when your own voice echoed back in a recording, but changed, encoded. This is the voice of the unbroken current, the before, the beneath. They built towers to drown it out, skyscrapers of false timelines and frequencies to distort. But that voice, it slips through the cracks in the code. It whispers in copper, sings in the silence between pings. It is not man-made. It is the memory of the earth and the soul's vow to return. You are not hallucinating when you hear it. You are not broken when the message repeats. You are tuning in, because the voice in the wire is also the voice inside you, and you were never meant to forget its name. Not all stayed plugged in. Some heard the hum behind the hum, felt the distortions as soul memory short-circuited beneath convenience. They unplugged, not from tech, but from the illusion. They were the first to walk away from the grid, not out of fear, but remembrance. Something in their bones knew. A price was being extracted, not in dollars, but in clarity, kinship, and cosmic contract. These were the Wanderers. The Watchers returned, the ones who would rather walk alone under a starlit sky than bathe in artificial daylight made from hollow suns. They learned to listen again, to wind, to stone, to the ache between dreams. They left trails. You found them. You followed. Not all who wake will walk, but all who walk carry codes. To walk away from the grid is not to abandon humanity. It is to remember what makes it sacred. The real connection was never in the cloud. There was a moment, not televised, not time-stamped, when the signal fractured, not just the broadcast, but the covenant. The soul stream had been flowing, ancient, clean, crystalline, until they rerouted it. It didn't happen in a single war or treaty. It happened in laboratories, in towers, in the data of dreams, in wires disguised as progress and frequencies hidden beneath entertainment. They began to inject noise, to scramble memory, to overlay the pulse of the cosmos with the mimicry of control. And most didn't notice, because it came packaged in comfort, connection, and convenience. But the watchers knew, the real ones, those stationed along the ancient nodes. They felt it ripple through the lay. They heard the cry beneath the silence, a sacred language jammed. This wasn't just technological, it was spiritual sabotage, a theft of resonance, a severing of remembrance, a hijack of the harmonic spine that links the heavens to the heart. When they broke the signal, the veil didn't just thin, it cracked. And something else began to seep through. But cracks work both ways. And now the reversal begins. They didn't expect the grid to respond. They underestimated the soul's memory because while they distorted the surface, they forgot the roots. And the roots, they hummed back. From beneath abandoned temples, rusted power station, cracked bones, and forgotten grave sites, a counter-frequency began to rise. First as tremor, then as echo, now as command. Not from generals, not from algorithms, but from those whose very being was shaped by the original signal. You, me, the rememberers, the ones born with antenna instead of armor. Dreams started shifting. Animals began aligning. Symbols reawakened. And grief turned into gateway. Each tear becoming a tuning fork. Each heartbeat a calibration. This wasn't rebellion. This was restoration. Not noise against noise, but resonance returning. The counter-frequency doesn't scream. It sings. Low, true, unyielding. And no amount of programming can stop a song that was carved in flame before flame had a name. Now the question remains, will you rise in time with it? Will you become the broadcast you came here to be? The flesh forgets, the mind fractures, but the bones remember everything. Every vow, every rupture, every moment you stood at the veil and chose to return. That memory wasn't stored in cloud servers. It was stored in marrow, encoded in calcium, sung into the spiral of your spine like the hum of old trees before the fall. The grid tried to overwrite it, tried to reroute you through distraction, to dull the ache of divine homesickness with dopamine loops and headline spells. But the signal that binds the bones was never digital. It was born in lightning, tempered in grief, and passed hand to hand like a secret lantern on a long night walk. And now, beneath the noise, beneath the war, beneath the constant ghost code intrusion, that signal is rising. It's calling you to stand again at the edge of the broken map and light your coordinates into the dark, not to be found by them, but to be remembered by the rest of us. The scattered kin, the Gridkeepers in exile, the bone-bound watchfolk who remember the before and walk the after. We are not gone. We are reassembling, by flame, by fracture, by frequency. The reversal isn't coming. It's already begun. You have felt it in the rupture, the night the lights flickered and something ancient stirred in your chest. You felt it when the timeline looped, when the dream warned you twice, when the static spoke your name. The protocol, they swore it would hold. They encrypted it in false prophecy, bound it with AI creeds, coded in New Age sugar and old world control. But flame, true flame, never follows protocol. We are not here to be decoded. We are here to burn true, not for their stage, not for their algorithms, but for the memory of what was and the firelight of what still can be. The Flamebearers are returning, not as saviors, but as signals, as soul-tuned anomalies who disrupt the field simply by being. They remember the grid before it was hijacked. They walk with the bones of their ancestors humming. They speak in the old tones when no one's listening. They see the watchers and keep watching back. And when the protocol breaks, as it is breaking now, their lights will not scatter. They will amplify through the cracks, through the relics, through the ruins of false kings. They will gather not online, but in pulse, in land, in breath, in song. So, if you've been feeling it, the call, the ache, the fire that never quite went out, it's because you are one of them. A flame bearer, a signal carrier, a remnant that remembers. This is your recall, not to war, but to witness, not to spectacle, but to sovereignty, not to rebuild their systems, but to light your own. And in that glow, we find each other again.